We found a big red cube, and underneath that cube is something even bigger, but not necessarily redder. However, things are getting serious now, so welcome to the end game of One Piece. Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam, and I also happen to enjoy big red cubes. And I have something similar here. It's not a cube, but it's more of a rectangle. But within this rectangle is a very special treasure, because when this channel gets to 1 million subscribers, I am going to open it and give whatever is inside to a subscriber. And we are getting super close to that 1 million number, so please do hit that gorgeous, tantalizing red button, and let's discover our own personal One Piece. And here's another clue for what's inside. The prize within this here case may come with some daddy issues. But now, it's back to things. The way the Straw Hats were just chilling and knew the fight was happening, but decided not to join unless needed, was an awesome way to show how much they've grown. Especially how Luffy is always wanting to just jump in. Truly the demeanor of an emperor and his crew. True enough, I mean, in the past, the Straw Hats, they've been, how shall we say, less than chill. But to be fair, they've always had this sense of emotional maturity about them. I think what obviously changes the situation is the fact that the opponent was a Marine Admiral. In the past, I think if someone that high up had appeared, then they would have instantly jumped in to help, which is a bit of a flex in and of itself. Imagine being so strong and I guess so confident that you can casually watch an admiral fight and just be like, they probably don't need me. He's not all that great anyway. The latter part of which is also a sentiment currently spreading through the fan base. I want to know why Green Bull seems so weak in comparison to the other admirals. He does, and I'll tell you exactly why that is. It's because Green Bull is, well, he's less than gifted in the old headspace. He does seem a lot weaker in comparison to previous admirals, but it's nothing to do with actual strength. It's because Green Bull put himself in an unfavorable situation with no backup, arrogantly assuming that his power would prevail against anything because of an unfounded superiority complex. It's not enough to just be powerful. You also need to consider when, where, and how that power gets used. And none of the other admirals would have made this decision because, well, they're just smarter. Even at Marineford, yes, the admirals went up against Whitebeard, which was a pretty boss maneuver, but that's because they had the defender's advantage, along with 100,000 Marines, 7 warlords, and a man so legendary that he can only be described as an anthropomorphic fist as backup. So that's why Green Bull feels a lot weaker, because he made a very, very poor decision. Oh, and also because he looks like a delicious broccoli. With what Shanks displayed, I wonder if there is a way to imbue one's observation haki with Conqueror's haki. It almost seemed like he was using a haki-talkie on Green Bull. It does a bit, and I would even go a step further, because this seems like the perfect mastery of all of the hakis, an attack that blends all three. Observation haki to target, Conqueror's haki to project, and armament haki to impact. It also brings up a new question I have, because we all know that armament haki bypasses Logia users, but now I'm suddenly wondering if Advanced Conqueror's haki does the same thing, or if it may have a different, more damaging effect, like how it was able to hit Kaido harder than regular old advanced armament. I'm also very curious about who is going to be involved in our next big Conqueror's haki clash, because after Big Mom and Kaido decided to do an onsen episode and take a lava bath, we are really short on Advanced Conqueror's haki users who are not dead. So it makes me wonder if Luffy and Shanks might have a friendly clash, along the same lines as Shanks and Whitebeard did, except reversing positions with Shanks now as the wizened old dude guy. That or Blackbeard has it, and right now it's hard to imagine that he doesn't. If he doesn't, man, he's got no chance. I'm still uncertain as to why Shanks actually came to Wano. Did he know Aramaki was going to show up, or was he also anticipating Wano's borders opening and the potential for Pluton to be released? I can't think of any other reason for him showing up. Kinda sussy. Yeah, so that's something I've been thinking about a bit lately. And I do have a cynical view on it, but it's worth asking the question of why he's here. Like, did he deliberately set sail to Wano, or was he just passing through at the right time? If things had not gone amazingly well for the Alliance, would Shanks have stepped in to do what he does best and lend a hand? Just one though, because he only has one to give. And I mentioned this in the chapter review, but I have a very hard time separating this from Film Red, because this chapter is the last one officially released before it premieres. And obviously, whether it impacted Oda's writing or not, the chapter was very specifically lined up with this release date. And I had a couple of commenters stating that it was the opposite, and they actually chose the film's release date to line up with the chapter, which I just find kind of ridiculous. For one, ever since Film Gold, all of the One Piece movies have been released in either late July or early August, and for another, just think of the logistics here. Would it be easier to coordinate one man with complete creative control of his story to structure some Shanks hype roughly around this time? Or would it be easier to coordinate an entire animated film production, marketing, merchandise, and a global October release schedule based on lining up with a manga chapter that Oda probably hadn't even planned when the film's release date was announced. And it's probably the first one. I guess we'll never know though, and to be honest, it doesn't really matter because more Shanks is never a bad thing. I mean, unless you're this guy. I dislike Shanks' interference in the fight. It makes the whole talk about defending Wano without help from people who are going to leave pointless. So look, that is technically true. If Momonosuke were a real boy instead of a fake fictional dragon boy, then he'd probably be pretty disappointed by this outcome. But this conflict was more for us as readers, something to show the strength of Momonosuke's resolve and allow us to believe that this island will be just fine once all of our heavy hitters leave. And to me, it makes a lot of sense. Momo is still not strong enough to defend Wano from a threat like Green Bull, and that's why we needed to keep the borders up. But at the same time, his speech makes me believe in his imminent potential. It actually gave me Luffy flashbacks, specifically to Dressrosa, where Luffy decided that he was not going to run from Fujitora. And even though Luffy probably would have been completely obliterated if that fight went ahead, it was a moment of mental growth, a mindset that his body has now caught up to. So Momo's thinking is right, and that's why Wano feels safe to me, because he's now going to put in the work to have his physical power catch up to that mindset. So Big Mom is definitely somewhere dry in the underground part of Wano. We specifically still see Zeus in Nami's staff, and if she's dead, then he's definitely dead. We did indeed see Zeus in the chapter partying about as hard as a cloud is capable of, but when it comes to the whole Big Mom death thing, I could honestly see it going either way, because it's been established that she's not one of those fruit users whose powers vanish if they become unconscious. And we do also know that not all fruit effects disappear after the user dies. For example, the Ope Ope no Mi's perpetual youth surgery would be completely useless if the fruit's effects vanished after the user passed away, because it would invalidate the ability entirely. So sadly, seeing Zeus doesn't really give us anything to work with either way. Big Mom could be dead, but having created life, Zeus could now just be his own independent entity. Or she could be alive, and so obviously, so is Zeus. Again, it tells us almost frustratingly little. How exactly did Tom get the blueprints for Pluton? If Pluton was hidden away underneath Wano 800 years ago, then how did Tom get his hands on it? Alright, so with all of this Pluton talk, it would probably be beneficial to clarify this. Pluton was first constructed on Water 7. They were an ally of the Great Kingdom, and once the warship set sail, the blueprints stayed and were passed down from ship right to ship left, and eventually ended up with Tom. Pluton then did whatever it did during the Void Century, which I imagine was just a lot of bang, bang, bang. After which point it was retired and hidden under Wano. Walls were built to stop naughty sand alligators from taking it to achieve world domination, and there it remains dormant to this day. And meanwhile, the message left directing the Chosen One to Pluton was left on Alabasta in the form of their poneglyph, which is crazy to think about. The story of Pluton has now spanned 3 of One Piece's biggest and arguably greatest arcs: Alabasta, Water 7, and Wano. This weapon, it had better be worth it. I think we're going to get a clear-cut explanation of what Pluton really is. Probably something available/accessible to the Straw Hats, leaving Uranus, the final weapon, to be explained/shown. I'm not sure if we're going to get a clear-cut explanation of anything, and I could actually see this being all we get to learn of Pluton during this arc. At its core, One Piece is a mystery story, and Oda is a much bigger fan of asking questions than he is answering them. So I would be quite surprised if he went into more detail about what Pluton is or how it functions right now, because it feels like leaving us with this tease would be more of an Oda-like action. It's kind of like that episode of The Simpsons with the whole steamed ham situation. Oda invites his readers over for an unforgettable luncheon. He then wanders into the kitchen where we briefly see something and say, "Good lord, what is happening in there?" The ancient weapon Pluton. Yeah, the ancient weapon Pluton. At this point in the story, in this part of the world, localized entirely under Wano. Yes. May I see it? No. That seems exactly like how this is going to go. How far behind the manga is the anime? Anime only watcher, and I'm itching for an awakened Luffy. I have many months left, eh? Oh, the use of the word months is, it's optimistic there. Unfortunately, you've got quite a long way to go. So at the time of this recording, the latest episode of the anime is 1027, which animated about half of chapter 1010. So even if the anime was to do 1 episode per chapter, we're still looking at about a whole year before getting to see Gear 5th animated. Except that will obviously be longer because right now, episodes are covering fragments of chapters rather than one whole thing. And also random specials like the Film Red episodes are going to extend that even more. So I think we're looking at about a year and a half before getting to see Gear 5th Luffy on screen. So look forward to late 2023, I guess. By which point we'll all be talking about Gear 6 or Elbaf or whatever the crap's happening. I'm really hoping that Chopper's new Wanted poster is a picture of Monster Point with a real bounty. It is very possible to have a Monster Point bounty because he did use it against Queen. And that was quite a high profile fight. right in the middle of the performance floor, so many a picture could have been taken. What I still want more than anything when it comes to Chopper is for him to still be eating cotton candy, but in his monster form. This is the big moment though. There's always a gag or two when the Straw Hats level up, like Sanji's bounty being slightly higher than Zoro's, or Sanji having a poorly drawn picture, or Sanji having like the stupid hard eyes. I'm just now realizing that Sanji is the source of most of the bounty gags. But if Chopper does finally get a serious bounty, then I think that this missing gag will just be given to another crew member, because I'm not sure if we can escape his involvement this time, because he was very prominent with all of the performance floor stuff where all of the people were and they were looking and paying attention, and so stuff will become known. The fact that Oda included Jinbei with Zoro and Sanji as the new monster quad was huge for me. Glad to see Jinbei get the recognition he deserved and show he won't just get thrown in as a normal crew member. I think it's very hard not to give Jinbei that recognition. He's a former warlord respected by all of the everyone, as well as one of the strongest fighters in the One Piece world, arguably the strongest if water decides to get involved, which it will once Jinbei very politely asks it to. However, I think it says more about the monster trio that they can now sit comfortably in the same league as a figure like Jinbei. Although if Yamato joins in this monster quartet, may immediately turn into a monster, whatever the 5 is, a quintet, question mark. Doesn't really matter though, because we would be adding another serious heavy hitter to the crew. And again, credit to the monster trio, because none of Luffy, Zoro, or Sanji feel out of Yamato's league, except for maybe Sanji. With Green Bull and Shanks seemingly leaving, does that leave Marco as the most likely source of where to go next? I agree with this thought, but before we get to Marco, here is something interesting. Right now, we are in a very rare situation where we have no idea where we're going next in the post-time skip era, and it's been a long time since this has happened. We kicked off this entire half of the series knowing that we were going to Fishman Island, and after that we have our one point of adventure where Luffy just randomly chose to go to Punk Hazard because it was the most dangerous. But from there we were on a mission to Dressrosa, then mission to Zoe, then mission to Whole Cake Island, and finally mission to Wano. And I think when people say that post-time skip lacks some of the charm of pre-time skip, this is a big part of it. There's not a lot of pure adventure and uncertainty in the post-time skip locations. It's almost always very serious mission-based business, instead of just setting sail and seeing where we end up. But back to Marco, we are currently missing one road poneglyph, and I think he'd be a pretty great guy to ask about that. As it is, I've been wondering why Oda decided to include him on Wano. Because he was great and fun and all, and I'm a big fan of pineapples and birds, he put them together, that sounds pretty cool. But for someone so major, it makes me feel like he still has an important part to play. And given that he doesn't actually have a ride home at the moment, maybe there's some room on the Sunny for a big bright bird. But right now there's room for you in this next video, which is also about One Piece, and I look forward to seeing you there.